Hello and welcome back to GP Video Podcast by Nadia. So yesterday we started the topic of Autism Spectrum Disorder or ASD, and we will be continuing with that today. So yesterday I told you the definition of Autism Spectrum Disorder. Definition is very, very important because when we look at the definition, when we hear the definition, we know that there are two domains where these kids usually are lacking the capabilities. So number one is Autism spectrum disorder is a biologically based neurodevelopmental disorder characterized by persistent deficits in, number one is social communication and interaction. So persistent deficits or persistent deficiency in social communication and interaction. And number two is restricted repetitive behavior, repetitive patterns of behavior, interests or activities. So these are the two domains that kids would have their symptoms in. So number one is deficiency or deficit of social communication and interaction, and restricted repetitive patterns of behavior, activities or interests. So these are the two domains, and usually they have deficits, or usually they have the symptoms of both of these categories. Social communication and interaction they lack, persistently they lack the ability, and then they have repetitive, restrictive patterns of behavior, activities or interests. Symptoms become apparent when social demands exceed limited capacities. Severity is determined by functional impairment and can be critical in the ability to access services. Okay, so the pathogenesis, as I told you yesterday, of autism spectrum disorder is incompletely understood. The general consensus is that ASD is caused by genetic factors that alter brain development, resulting in the neurobehavioral phenotype. Environmental and perinatal factors account for few cases of ASD but may modulate underlying genetic factors. So environmental and perinatal factors are there but not that important. Another thing that I would like to really concentrate on and tell you, because I've already spoken about it in the video that I made on medical myths, is that the overwhelming majority of epidemiologic evidence does not support an association between immunizations and ASD. There was a big myth at some stage that immunizations can cause autism spectrum disorder. That is not true. All right, so ASDs are common, with the latest Australian data putting the incidence at 1 in 100 children. So it is a very, very common condition. Then they say when to suspect ASD. A typically developing child should respond in smile to a familiar caregiver's smile or baby talk by 2 to 4 months. So at 2 to 4 months of age, a normally developing child should smile in response to a familiar caregiver's smile or baby talk. Okay. At 8 months, an infant will follow a parent's gaze, that is, look in the same direction as the parent is looking. So at 8 months. I'm talking about these small developmental milestones, social developmental milestones. Children should be able to follow their parents' point by 10 to 12 months and start pointing themselves by 12 to 14 months. Then they begin to point, to share, look at this by 16 months. As they point, children will look back and forth between the object and their parent. It's the shared social experience, not the tangible object the child seeks. These joint attention behaviors are often absent or reduced in a child with ASD. So see, what are we looking here? We are looking at social pattern of behavior or social developmental milestone. So they say that, what should a child do at 2 to 4 months? He should, smile in response to a baby caregiver's smile, like a parent's smile. Then at 8 months, infant will follow a parent's gaze, that is, look in the same direction as the parent is looking. Then at 10 to 12 months, should be able to follow their parents' point and start pointing themselves by 12 to 14 months. They start pointing towards an object by 12 to 14 months. Then they begin to point to share. Look at this. Like they will try and get the parent to look at what they are pointing at by 16 months, and then they should look back and forth between the object and their parent. So all these social interaction or social communication kind of developmental milestones will be either lacking, like they would not be there, or they would be reduced in a child with ASD, depending upon the severity of the ASD a child has. Then, as we said, it's social communication. So what are the communication deficits? Communication deficits in ASD include deficits in both non-verbal and verbal communication and expressive and receptive language. Some individuals remain mute throughout life. Although present, language may not be functional. Children may be able to learn shapes and numbers but not follow one-step commands. So see, again, it's expressive and receptive. So not only they will have difficulty in expressing themselves, they will have problem in receiving it as well, in receiving the commands as well, and as a response they would not be able to follow the commands that the parents are giving them. So stereotyped and repetitive language, including echolalia, parroting of learned phrases or scripts is common. So stereotyped and repetitive language, which is called echolalia, which is parroting of, again, repeating, parroting. That's why we say as a parrot repeats whatever you say, they would repeat it. So parroting of learned phrases or scripts is common. Other signs include unusual vocal qualities such as tone or speed and pronoun reversal. Example, saying you instead of I. So all these kind of communication, both expressive and receptive deficits would be there. Affected individuals frequently have a very concrete and literal understanding of language, such as not understanding idioms, lies or jokes, and miss social cues such as body language and tone of voice. Even relatively mildly affected children and adults may have difficulty initiating and sustaining two-way conversations. So again, it is both social interaction deficits and communication deficits, but together it is a social communication deficit basically, in which they are not able to usually initiate a conversation. They are not able to understand the meanings of idioms, or not able to get if a person is lying or not, what is the body tone, what is the body posture, or what is the body language of the other person. So they lack those capabilities. Children with ASD tend not to play imaginatively. Example, pushing the car along and saying broom, 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 and instead will engage in unusual repetitive play such as lining up toys or spinning the wheels of a car. So I'm sure we all have heard about this lining up toys, that what they do is usually they line up, for example, cars, or they line up any kind of toys, which is a kind of a repetitive game. They frequently show little interest in social play, example, peekaboo or patty cake, and their play is often object focused, example, computer games rather than people focused. So again, as we said, that it is social deficit, so the games are usually more object focused rather than playing with other kids. So the following red flags are absolute indications for referral for an autism specific assessment. Red flags for autism. So there are 4 red flags that have been told to us for either for parents or for any kind of caregiver, or for let's say doctors. So number 1 is lack of babbling, gesturing or pointing by 12 months. As we said, that by 12 months they should be able to follow their parents' point and start pointing themselves by 12 to 14 months. So lack of babbling, gesturing or pointing by 12 months. No sharing of interest in objects or activities with another person. No single words by 16 months, or no 2-word phrases by 24 months. Any loss of language or social skills at any age. So these are the 4 red flags that we should be looking at. Lack of babbling, gesturing or pointing by 12 months. Not sharing of interest in objects or activities with another person. No single words by 16 months, or no 2-word phrases by 24 months. And any loss of language or social skills at any age. I will come back to this topic tomorrow.